Hi, I'm Katie, and welcome back to Rain or Shine Gardening. Today, we break ground on our rose redo project where we are going to kind of reimagine and redesign our anniversary rose garden here in the front of my yard and my garden space. So, the first video that you saw kind of outlined our ideas and our plan. And before we can start moving things or installing things or putting down a pathway and kind of showing more of that plan, we have to remove some things. So, like I talked about in the first video today, we are going to pull out some annuals that I have planted in the area, and we are going to pull out some of the conifers and some of the roses, even. I mentioned not ideal time to trim them back, but I really do need them to be smaller to transport and kind of keep in my storage area until we're ready to plant them back in the rose garden. And then I do have some hostas and some other things that kind of came up and were planted by the previous owners of our house. And we're going to dig those out and repurpose them in other places of the garden. So today we're going to dig in the dirt. I've got my little shovel that I like to use to get in there in some of those hard to reach areas. We've got a debris bin here. We've got our large yard debris bin. We've got our gorilla cart wagon. So we're just going to jump in, start pulling out some things, and then along the way I will pause and kind of show you progress that we're making. But very exciting day today. We are starting the project, actually getting in there and starting to see some of this develop. So let's get started. All right, this area here already looks really different after pulling out all those annuals. And I think next we're going to work on digging out these conifers here and some of the hostas. And then I'm going to cut back some of these perennials and dig them out and put them in some pots for now too. So these are all going to be moved just to other areas because when we put our pathway in, it's going to kind of come in and around this way, and we're just going to need to have those moved for a little while. Our next project is to remove this azalea from the corner of this garden area. It is one that has been here since we moved in. It's a bright red, which doesn't necessarily go with the rest of my garden. And as you can see by the foliage on it, it has spider mites very badly. Like the gray and the rusty color tinge it just has really been inflicted. So time to remove it And I have some ideas for what I'm going to put in here, but we need to take it out first. So because it's a pretty established plant, I don't know what kind of root system we're going to be dealing with, but we are going to give it our best shot. Okay, we're making good progress. We got all these annuals pulled out of this area, and that azalea that was inflicted by spider mites is now gone. And it was actually a lot easier to get out than I thought it was going to be, which was a pleasant surprise. There was actually a little seedling of some kind of tree growing in the middle of it, probably from some kind of nut or something that a squirrel buried there. And it was harder to pull out the roots for that little sapling tree than it was to pull out the azalea. And when we pulled it out, I mentioned that the previous owners had planted it. It was here when we bought the house, and we found a tag that was still attached to the bush when we pulled it out. And how funny is that? That I had no idea what the variety was until we removed it and we found this little tag. So this was a Johanna azalea, and it was a hybrid. Anyway, kind of funny that we found that as we were pulling it out. But now this area is all removed of the things that were planted here. So we're going to move into the hostas and removing this other little shrub. And then we will head over to where the roses begin in the other bed. Okay, we got all of these hostas dug out, and they're in big root ball clumps like this. And so I just pulled off one section, and you can see, let's see if it'll focus. You can see the roots and the little growth here down below where it's going to be expanding. So I have a little planter of dirt here. I'm just sticking that down in, and I'm going to fill with dirt around it. And then next spring, I will have a bunch of new hostas to plant around in my garden. So instead of just digging this up and putting it in the yard debris bin, I am going to repurpose it. So you see, I have that planted up with some dirt around it. I'm going to water it in, and it should be able to overwinter just fine here in this pot. So to divide it, again, I'm just kind of reaching in and finding a natural clump. So here you can see I've found this little clump, and I'm just going to kind of rock it back and forth, and the roots will kind of detach. So I have a new little clump here. So now I'm going to plant that in another bucket, and we'll just keep doing this until we have all of these divided and put into pots. Okay, and now we have the hostas removed from this area. So now you can see right into some of the roses that we have planted here. And you can also tell that because these roses are so hard to access currently, there's all kinds of grass coming up, there's weeds, there's black spot and things that my roses need more attention for. There's also a lot of deadheading that needs to be done on the roses. But this is the reason, too, why I want to redesign my garden bed for my roses so I can access them easier and take better care of them. So now I think we're going to go around to the front, and you can see some of the annuals that I have planted there just behind my sunset bench. And so I'm going to go around the front, and we're going to take those out. And I think we're going to also dig up these iris. And then I think we might call it a day for our prep work. The next step will be to dig out all the roses, but because I'm not going to be planting them again right away, I think I might keep them in the ground until we're ready to get out and continue our project. So next step, continue pulling out the annuals that are in front right behind the bench. Get those iris taken out. I do have some Gara in front of that too that I want to be able to take out and pot up. And then we might be close to removing everything out of the bed that we need, other than the roses, for our project. think that's it for part 2 today with our garden prep project to redo our rose garden. We got all the annuals taken out, a bunch of the perennials taken out. I think I now divided my hostas into at least 12 different pots of hostas. Dug out the iris. I think I got 6 divided for that, and those are all potted up. And then we just got, yeah, like I said, all the annuals pulled out. I did do a little bit of a change of plans, like I mentioned, though, and we left the roses in the ground for now until we're going to get closer to pulling those out. So I didn't cut any of them back yet or dig them out. We have these behind me that are in the ground from our rose garden, and then we have some over in the far side of the yard too. But yeah, my camera fell over, my microphone broke, so hopefully you can hear this okay. I don't have my microphone on. But I think we're going to call it for part 2 of the project, and make sure to subscribe so that you can come back and continue to watch us in our project of redoing our anniversary rose garden. And rain or shine, I will see you next time.